Welcome to the Credentials-You-Go initiative, which explores how to transform the nation's credentialing system to include incremental credentials to build a fairer system that recognizes and formally documents what learners know and can do. We made this case in our first mini-conference. This is the second mini-conference. Today's topic is policy, practice, and process. Because this topic is so large, we've divided it into two parts, a focus first on federal, state, and accreditation policies, and second, a focus on institutional policies and practices. Let's start with a foundational question. How does policy impact a transformation to an incremental credentialing system? In general, policy is a broad category that encompasses laws, regulations, procedures, administrative actions, rules, incentives, and voluntary practices of governments and other institutions. Policy decisions are frequently reflected in resource allocations and in accountability processes. Policy is one of the key building blocks of the U.S. learn and work ecosystem. Within the policy building block, there are an array of policy bodies such as governments, federal and state, employer program policies, union program policies, particularly around apprenticeship programs, policy from accrediting organizations, state systems of higher education, state coordinating boards, institutional policies including boards of regents, policies and administrative rules, and community-based program policies. Think about libraries and local initiatives that support immigrant centers and goodwill centers and others. The policy landscape is very crowded and very layered. A simplistic way to think about policies, they're the carrots and sticks that guide our planning, implementation, and reporting of outcomes. The carrot and sticks metaphor fits especially well for the federal policy world. Pell Grants are a federal subsidy for students who need it to pay for college. Pell is limited to students with need who have not earned a first bachelor's degree or who enroll in certain post-baccalaureate programs through participating institutions. More than 5,000 institutions participate. For years, there has been debate over expanding federal financial aid to cover short-term credential programs. Advocates argue we need more rapid, flexible options that get people ready for in-demand job opportunities quickly. Critics contend that many short-term, non-degree programs don't help workers advance beyond static jobs that pay low wages, and this harms especially people of color and from low-income backgrounds. Data collection is another major policy. IPEDS in the U.S. Department of Education annually conducts 12 surveys in fall, winter, and spring. All institutions authorized by Title IV for any federal financial assistance program are required to complete these surveys. Data include institutional characteristics and prices, enrollment, financial aid, degrees and certificates conferred, and student persistence and success. IPEDS is considering now whether and when to collect non-degree data, and this will be very important policy for incremental credentialing. In the workforce development area, policy through career and technical education and related WIO and Perkins programs provides funding and programmatic guidance that is particularly important for community and technical colleges. Apprenticeships, very important to incremental credentialing, are guided by federal laws and regulations, with processes managed by the U.S. Department of Labor. The federal government, Congress, and the agencies have many tools to influence the field. They can use the bully pulpit, work across the agencies that have strong employer connections, and create funding incentives, think new grant programs, to impact secondary and post-secondary programs. State policy is also a powerful lever for change in the credentialing world. Here, carrots reign supreme. States can provide policies to enable innovation and offer financial support to incentivize change on the ground. Here are state flags, all flags but different too, and this is a metaphor for the different looks in policy among the states. States set policy for their educational systems and provide policies which impact their workforce and employers. Here are examples from the states highlighted on our flag slide. Louisiana's governor established a statewide program to provide financial assistance for short-term post-secondary courses. Since 2016, Virginia has operated a short-term credential program. Florida's legislative session just amended a law that starts fall 2022 that requires all public post-secondary institutions to award students a nationally recognized digital badge upon completion of general education core courses that demonstrate career readiness. The Board of Education and the Board of Governors for the state university system are jointly appointing faculty committees to identify agreed-upon competencies in the general education core that demonstrate career readiness for award of the new badge, which must be awarded and recognized by every Florida public post-secondary institution. This year, Colorado passed multiple bills to support credentialing strategies and disadvantaged students. Among 3 bills listed here, the Opportunities for Credential Attainment requires the Department of Higher Education to support institutions to create stackable credential pathways, which is very relevant to incremental credentialing. The legislation includes provisions for the public universities to award associate degrees to students who stop out short of a bachelor's, as well as requires a task force to study the public higher education system in Colorado. The State University of New York adopted a broad microcredential policy in 2018 following recommendations of a SUNY microcredentialing task force created in 2015. Through a collaborative process and endorsed by the SUNY trustees, SUNY has a definition of microcredentials and a taxonomy of terms to ensure that microcredentials are the same quality as every type of credential SUNY offers. Today, SUNY offers more than 400 microcredentials across more than 30 community colleges and universities. State systems of higher education and coordinating boards play a major policy role. They typically develop and implement post-secondary policy in alignment with federal and state statute. They administer academic, financial aid, and workforce programs to include the review and approval of academic programs and research centers, commission and conduct research and analysis and complete data reports, set tuition rates, and administer funding formulas and allocate funds. Governors often play a key role in these entities by appointing their CEOs. Another important player in the policy role is accreditation. Many believe it is difficult, if not impossible, to undertake large-scale innovations due to accreditation requirements. Our post-secondary system is degree-centric, organized around associate, baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral and professional degrees. Incremental credentials changes this dynamic. This potential increases the complexity of the changing educational waterways, but there are many checks and balances, key among them the requirement of institutional accreditation for approved colleges and universities. Is an incremental credential system compatible with accreditation? Credential As You Go interviewed the Middle States Commission on Higher Education last fall to explore these issues. Here are 5 examples of questions we raised and their answers, which provide important insight into the role of accreditation requirements and the context fueling revisiting accreditation policies. A first question is to ask, what does an accreditation review look like for incremental credential changes at a campus? We won't go over the answers for each of the next questions given time constraints, but you'll have the slide deck as a resource to review later for the answers. The next question asks why people think accreditation standards do not permit innovation of the sort Credential As You Go is exploring. A third question asks about the role of accreditors in helping institutions understand the power of an incremental system. A fourth question asks the practical question, what guidance are institutions getting as they start to integrate hybrid, non-credit, badges, or other short-term credentials into their regular program? And are the institutions asking these questions? And a fifth question, how might changes in federal policy around Pell Grants potentially for short-term credentials impact institutional accreditors and graying of the lines between traditional degrees and other credentials. The next two slides depict trends. The Higher Learning Commission is reviewing around the rapidly changing credentialing world. Their board is using this information to shape future policy, and all the accrediting bodies are looking carefully at these trends too. And for those of you who work closely with disciplinary-oriented accreditors and certification bodies, there are those guidelines, policy, to follow closely as well. Altogether, these responses assure us that accreditation bodies are exploring incremental credentials as part of normal academic offerings, and that similar checks and balances will be in place to ensure quality and integrity of all credentials. So the green light is there. We hope this quick walk down the policy roads related to the federal, state, higher education systems, and accreditation helps to put our incremental credentialing work into better focus. We cannot undertake a transformation of the education system without close alignment with policy. Part 2 will focus then on the institutions. Here are references for the materials in this presentation. Here are the many ways to reach us. Thanks so much.